Hi guys, so today we're going to go through Macbeth Act 1, Scene 1. So I know from my personal experience and that with my students that it's sometimes hard to locate key characters, key themes, key quotes, and then it's difficult for them to find contextual factors that they should pull out from individual scenes. So I'm going to go through it in layman's terms and try to make it as interesting and engaging as possible. So let's get to it. So key themes. We're introduced to the theme of the supernatural in the opening. We're also introduced to the theme of appearance versus reality. So appearance is the way that someone or something looks, and reality is things as they actually are. And we get the theme of violence also. Key characters. So in this scene, we meet the witches. So a key quote you should jot down: "When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won." So a hurly-burly is a violent conflict. And here we get the repetitive use of the adverb when. So when the hurly-burly, when the battles. And here it's foreshadowing that there's violence to come. Shakespeare's enforcing this idea by repeating it. And here it links to the themes of violence and the supernatural. The second quote you should jot down: "Fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air." So here we get the repetitive use of fricatives. That's the consonant sound F, so fair, foul, foul, fair. It's quite blunt and aggressive in the way that it's said, and obviously it highlights the words because it slows you down. And here there's a use of pathetic fallacy. So this is where the author, in this case, uses the weather to create a tone, to create a mood, and we have the fog and the filthy air, so it creates quite an ominous and dark, menacing tone. It's also a paradox that is said with an exclamative tone. So a paradox is a type of juxtaposition, but it's different in the sense that when it's further looked into, it could appear to be true. So contradictory in its sense, but it could be true. And this links to the theme of appearance versus reality. So fair is good and foul is bad. And if fair is foul and foul is fair, it's basically telling us that things may not be what they seem. Good is bad and bad is good. So it's almost a warning for us as the audience to look out for this as the play progresses. And it links to the theme of the supernatural, because here the witches are telling us that it's going to happen, they're foreseeing it. It's also foreshadowing. So some structural features that you should note down. So obviously in the opening we're introduced to the witches in a sinister and dark way. It foreshadows a battle, emphasises the violence that we're expected to see. It also foreshadows things may not be what they seem. Good is bad, bad is good. Look out for that. There are a series of rhyming couplets which speeds it up and it gives it like a spell-like chant. And use of pathetic fallacy. Consider the weather and how the dark and gloomy weather starts the play. How does it make you feel as the audience? Some contextual factors. So Jacobean audiences were extremely religious and God-fearing, and this links to the divine right of kings. So this was the belief that the king derived their authority from God. They were essentially gods on earth. So the audience would have loved their king. They would have wanted to protect their king and honour their king and do everything in their power in their life to do good in order to enter the kingdom of heaven with God in heaven by respecting the king on earth. So King James I of England, this is just a bit of extra contextual information, was known to have written a document, Demonology, which focused on the horrors of ancient black magic. So imagine in the opening of the play we're introduced to these creatures that would have had to have essentially sold their souls to the devil in exchange for supernatural powers. Imagine the anxiety that would have caused the audience that were God-fearing, religious, respectful. Also at the time, the Witchcraft Act was passed in 1563 during Elizabeth's reign, and this essentially meant that witches were to be sought out and murdered. And I'm sure you know this, that the way that they were tested to see if they were witches, where they were taken to a river, drowned, and if they sunk, essentially they were innocent, and those that floated were seen to be witches, were then taken and burnt at the stake. So just imagine the anxiety and the fear this would have caused. Right in the opening, we meet these evil beings that are telling us about the trickery that we have to expect. Things are not going to be what they seem. Good is bad and bad is good. So nothing is what it seems. Telling us about violence that's going to come. Expect it. And here, gloss up your glossary. So Grey, Malcolm and Paddock. This is the witches call out to them in the opening. Those are known as familiars, so they were witches' assistants. It just adds to their character. Hurly Burly, we've got that violent conflict. Fair is good, foul is bad. And they meet in an unused land, in uncultivated land on the heath. So they're out there in the sparse land talking about all of this horrific stuff that the audience has to remember. So what you should do is just write down those quotes, note down the contextual factors, some structural themes. I would suggest making spider diagrams, because then by the end of this playlist you'll have links to context, language, structure, everything you need to give you a full picture of what you're expected to pull out. And if you want to like, subscribe and hit that bell, it will keep the videos coming. So good luck, guys.